And in 2024, Palestine is the spearhead for global liberation, liberation of all occupied and oppressed peoples, whether they be in Sudan or Congo or anywhere in the world. Palestine is the spearhead for the liberation. Free Palestine and free all oppressed peoples. You know, since 1948, there was a massive genocide, and that genocide continued on through 75 years. It continued on in a very slow, meted out format with several atrocities, several massacres happening throughout those 75 years. Massacres of Palestinian people were quite rather common. And there are many places where you can learn about the massacre that happened this year and the massacre that happened that year. However, oftentimes what would the state of Israel do would put a plaque in the very place where the massacre of Palestinians happened, and the plaque would spin the story around totally opposite and make it appear as if certain heroes or martyrs from Israel came in and saved the day for all these people. In the meantime, what really happened was several Palestinians, whether it be in the tens or the hundreds, were massacred in this certain area. And there are countless massacres. You know, to go through the list, you would just keep going over the last 75 years. And so what could be most sad than planning an event starting in the 74th year and sitting down with everybody in full knowledge of what is planned and manufacturing an event to manufacture consent. Manufacture an event to manufacture consent. And that consent has been pushed upon a whole global population of people who have been actually trained by the event that came in 2020, which involved a filtering system called vaccine mandates. That filtering system filtered people by the censorship industrial complex, and they were silenced. And then those that made it to the filter, they were being trained all the time, and they still are being trained, that if you speak out, you get erased. And that's what the big social media networks are doing. They're always training people that if you speak out, you'll be erased. And of course, there's all sorts of other formats of trying to censor and trying to keep people silent in this era. And I never thought that I would see a world that perhaps was more racist than the world that my father grew up in. I never thought that was possible, but I think that's possible. I think the whole bombing of Palestine, the whole indiscriminate bombing, was racist. I think it was racist at the core. I'm just going to call it straight, okay? I think it was racist at the core. The bombing of black and brown people, or brown people, and constantly framing a whole group of people, broad stroking a whole group of people as terrorists, which, you know, if you grew up in the United States, in the black community, you know what broad stroking a whole group of people is about. And we saw it. And then we saw the same thing happen when George Bush came around in 2000, whatever he was doing, 2001 or 2002, and he started broad stroking this whole idea of terrorists. But it just was a false notion. And the media kept repeating it. And so a lot of Americans, a lot of people began to buy that. But what we never bought growing up in Detroit was that the government was honest. We never bought that. We never bought that the government was upright and dignified. We never bought that because we could see just the opposite. We grew up seeing what government was like right in front of our faces, right? So, as I'm saying, let Palestine be the spearhead. Let Palestine be the spearhead for the end of such cruelty to humanity. Such cruelty to humanity. And this is not a war between so and so and so. This is a war of major multinational corporations which are bombing their way across a land to get resources. That's exactly what's going on. They are after the resources of the whole air world. And they have started there, and we don't know where they want to go. But we know this has got to stop. And the whole planet has to wake up. The whole planet. Even if you're living in that land, even if you're living in the country that you think is pristine and proper and dignified, then you got to realize that this is a major corporate move, a major corporate genocide to take over resources. Okay, everyone, move together, unite.